Hari Om, Namo Namaha. Ajam nirvikalpam nirakaram ekam niranandam anandam advaita purnam param nirgunam nirvishesham niriham parabrahma rupam ganesham bhajema parabrahma rupam ganesham bhajema. Our pranams to our Pujya Gurus, Adi Guru and the Guru Parampara. Team Vedanta welcomes you all to the 90th session. Today, the team will be presenting Mundaka Upanishad, Mundaka 2, Khanda 1, that is Chapter 2, Section 1. Here in this section, the teacher Angiras gives details of Para Vidya to sage Shaunaka. The subject matter deals in much greater with Akshara Brahma, which is a liberating knowledge. Many of us are hesitant to enter the world of Upanishads, to go beyond the Bhagavad Gita. The Upanishads speak in greater detail about our true nature. Some of us are reluctant to enter these discussions because we have a mind block that Upanishads are beyond our capacity. Our gurus say that we must respect our mind. It is the most flexible. The mind is infinitely resourceful and has the ability to expand much more than the whole world. This knowledge is well within our capacity. Do not doubt it. Harness the mind, employ it towards the spiritual dimension. We start today with today's session with Dr. Hegde. Over to you, sir.
Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. As mentioned by Neeta, we are continuing our study of Mundaka Upanishad and we have come to the second chapter. To recap, this whole Upanishad has got 3 chapters. Each chapter has 2 sections. Totally, we'll be studying 65 mantras. This Upanishad comes from the Atharva Veda, and the word Munda means head or shaven head. I want you to look at this picture of these 2 birds and see the meaning that it will reveal to yourself. Although there are 2 birds, the Upanishad will finally resolve these 2 birds into one. These 2 birds represent our 2 natures. One is our true nature, the higher nature or the paramarthika, which we may experience when we are fast asleep. The moment we wake up, we identify with the body and become the lower bird and suffer or enjoy as the day goes on. Thanks to Guru Shastra and the study of these Upanishads, we come to understand, although I identify with this body, although I go and into this world and see pleasant and unpleasant things, I always remember I am that higher bird, I am that paramarthika, temporary playing the role of vyavahara. And if this understanding is clear, that is the message of the Upanishad, particularly with this chapter that we are studying. Every Upanishad begins with a Shanti Pata, and this Upanishad has a wonderful Shanti Pata. Somewhere in our daily life, bring this Upanishad Shanti Pata as part of our prayer chanting. You know, it says, Om Bhadram Karane Bi Shruniyama Devaha. Whatever I hear, let it be auspicious. Even if I hear something inauspicious, let me have the capacity to convert that to auspiciousness. So too with whatever I see, so too with whatever I do. It also asks for fitness of my limbs. It asks for a full life so that I'm able to pursue Brahma Vidya and acquire Brahma Vidya. This Upanishad, because it comes from the Vedas, it refers to various Vedic gods like Indra, Tarksha or Garuda, which normally we don't see in our temples. But if you go to any temple, you will, after the main temple part, on one side you will see the Navagraha. And when you go to the Navagraha, Swastino Pusha Vishwavedaha, O all-knowing sun. Make this prayer to that Devata who is nourishing us. This Mundaka Upanishad begins with a Guru Shishya Parampara, telling us that this message has come none other from the firstborn, Brahma Devanam Prathama Sambhabhuva. And then it traces us to the present teacher of this Upanishad, who is Angirasa. A very prepared student, very reverentially goes to the teacher and asks this most wonderful question, O Bhagavan, O my teacher, please instruct me about that knowledge, knowing which everything worth knowing is known. That will be that question we should be able to remember all the time, especially in this particular chapter, because in this chapter, we are getting the answers, and this will go on through at least 4 or 5 classes, because this is the most important part of the Mundaka Upanishad, where we discuss that Vidya. If I get that knowledge, I will be able to identify with that higher bird or Paramarthika. And therefore, whatever happens in my world outside, it is not going to affect me, because now I get Brahma Vidya. The teacher then replies, yes, I will answer your question, but there are 2 kinds of knowledge. One is called the Para Vidya, what all our universities and colleges all over the world teach. Irrespective of whatever they teach, they only teach Apara. But if you have the grace to go to a Brahma Vidya Acharya, which we are privileged to have, the teacher then usually one-on-one is able to instruct that higher knowledge, which this student Shaunaka has asked. In the first section of the first chapter, concluded with one of these most beautiful verses, where the Upanishad now tells us this whole world that you see, this whole creation has come out of Brahman. And he says, remember, Brahman is not only that intelligent principle who has created this beautiful universe, that Brahman alone has become this universe. This is exactly what we are studying in Vishwarupa Ishvara Darshana. That means I now know that to see God, or to see anything that represents God, I don't have to go to the temple or Mount Kailash or any holy place. Anything and everything that I see around me is none other than Bhagwan himself, as the wall, as the light, as everything around me. In this beautiful example of Yathornabi Srijate Grinnate Cha. That completes the first section of the first chapter. In the second section, the teacher begins to elaborate all about Para Vidya and talks about the importance of all the karmas and the upasanas done in the Veda Purva. And slowly the teacher says, all this is very good. It will help you to lead a very successful life. But slowly and slowly the teacher says, he will show you the limitations of all these. They are good, but they have all the limitations. And finally, the end of the first section of the end of the second section of the first chapter concludes with this very relevant verse to all of us, because this is talking about us, those of us, Pariksha Lokan Karmachitan Brahmana, those who have examined your life, know the futility of all the worldly success. You now know that however much ever success you have in the outer world, it cannot be really fulfilling. And that is why we come to a guru, and that guru is able to give us Purnatva. Guru Meva Abhigachet, and then Samitpani Shrotriya Brahmanishta. This verse is an important verse. We all should know this verse. With that background, we will come to the second chapter, first section. The first verse will be explained to us by Dr. Devakar. Dr. Devakar, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. As Sir has already mentioned, in the first Mundaka, the first section, general outline of 2 fields of knowledge is given. The lower Para Vidya, covering Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga, and higher Para Vidya, dealing with Jnana Yoga. In the second section of first Mundaka, Para Vidya is elaborate. The main teaching of the Upanishad starts from the second Mundaka. As sir mentioned already, Shaunaka asked this profound question to Guru Angiras, kasmin bhagavo vijñāte sarvamidaṁ vijñātaṁ bhavatīti. What is that, my Lord, by knowing which all other things become known? The elaborate and detailed answer to this question is covered in the second and third Mundaka, which is the Para Vidya. There can be an answer to this question of Shaunaka only if everything in the creation has one common ingredient. Upanishad categorically says, of course, there is a common ingredient, which is not only having its own independent existence, but also enlivens everything else, enlivens every living being in this creation, starting from the microorganism to the most evolved human beings. This common sentient ingredient is the consciousness principle, or Brahman. The analysis, study, understanding, and then identifying with Brahman over a period of time under a competent guru is Jnana Yoga, and this is Para Vidya. In our lives, only this is worth knowing, and rest of the life is just incidental. In the next slide, we see the main teaching of the second Mundaka is given in three profound messages. The first, Brahma Satyam, conscious principle alone is really existent. The second is Jagat Mithya, world is seemingly existent, meaning it only has a lower order of reality. And the third is Jivo Brahmaiva na Paraha. I, the experiencer Jiva, is none other than the Brahman, the consciousness. Next slide, please. To convey the message of Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, Upanishad adopts the method of analysis of creation of the universe, Srishti Prakriya, in the first mantra of the second Mundaka. The description of Brahman in relation to the world, which is called as Tatastha Lakshanam, or relational definition of Brahman, is given. If we remember in the mantra 1.1.7, using the spider example, Tatastha Lakshanam of Brahman is already given once. Let's look at the relational definition between the cause, the karana, and the effect, the karyam, using Srishti Prakriya. We have already learned that God is the cause, karanam, of the world, which is the karyam. This is because God is both the creator and the intelligent cause, as well as the creator, the intelligent cause, as well as the raw material, the material cause of this universe. The technical term used is God, or Brahman, is the Abhinna Nimitta Upadana Karana, both the intelligent as well as the material cause. Just like a spider, who is the designer as well as the source of the web. So from one Brahman, many diverse creations, many diverse creatures in the world is created. So Brahman is Ekaha and the world is Anekam. Brahman is the content of this universe, which is also called as Sara. Brahman was there before, is there during, and will be there after the pralayam of the world. So Brahman is Nityaha. So Brahman has the independent existence, therefore Brahman is Satyam. So Brahman is Ekaha, Saraha, Nityaha, and Satyam. Swami Paramarthananda ji beautifully calls it as essence, ESNS. And universe, on the other hand, is Aneka, Asara, Anitya, and Mithya. Just like how one lump of gold is used to make several ornaments, and in fact, there is no existence for ornaments without the gold, as they are mere gold with different names and the forms, different nama and rupa. So universe is Brahman with names and forms. So only the names and forms is Mithya, but the very substance Brahman is Satya. In the next slide, we will look at the mantra. Tadetat Satyam Yatha Sudiptat Pavakat Vispulingaha Sahasrashah Prabhavante Sarupaha Tadakshara Dvividaha Soumya Bhavaha Prajayante Tatra Chaivapi Yanti. Tadetat Satyam, know that to be the truth. Here, Tat Etat is Brahman, which is going to be talked about as it is the central theme of this section. So Brahman is Satyam. Brahman alone is really existent. Aksharad vividaha bhavaha prajayante. Aksharaha, from the imperishable Brahman, vividaha bhavaha, all the living beings, including the inert matter, prajayante, are born. So all living and non-living things, including the time and space, were present in the unmanifested potential form of the Brahman, which is Maya. So Brahman and Maya has no beginning. They are anadi. At the time of creation, out of Brahman and Maya, Chetana Jiva, the sentient beings, and Achetana Prapancha, insentient matter, is created. Anything which is born always has to die. So all the Vividaha Bhavaha, which are Prajayante, born out of the origin, has to return back to the origin, which is called as Apiyanti in this verse. So at Srishti, universe manifests from the unmanifested seed form, and at the Pralayam returns back to the unmanifested form. Just like how a seed to plant and then to tree and then back to the seed form happens. A beautiful example is taken here to explain this. Yatha Sudiptat Pavakat. From the huge bonfire, Vispulingaha Sahasrashaha, thousands of the sparks emerge. Innumerable sparks are compared to jivas, and they are emerging from the Paramatma, which is compared to the bonfire. Jivatmas are many, tiny and insignificant compared to Paramatma bonfire, and Jivatma has no independent existence. So if one compares the names and forms, Jivatma will remain in a Dvaita with all the inferior attributes. But this verse points to the oneness in both the bonfire as well as the spark. Prabhavante Sarupaha. The very nature of the spark is heat and light, which is the same as the bonfire. So all Jivatmas too has the same nature of Satchitananda Swarupa of Paramatma. So this statement also reveals Jivatma Paramatma Aikya Mahavakya Vichara. Guru calls Shishya here as Saumya, meaning, oh pleasant one. This is to appreciate and encourage the student to pursue this Atma Gnanam further. So we have seen the Tatastha Lakshanam, the relational definition of Brahman in this verse. In the next mantra, we will see the Swarupa Lakshanam, or the natural definition of Brahman. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Divakar, for giving us a very nice explanation of this verse and also giving us an overview of what this section of the Mundaka Upanishad is now introducing Brahman in two ways. We see Brahman here in relation to the creation with a very nice bonfire and spark example. And in the next verse, which will be explained by Dr. Sanjay, we will get what is called the Swarupa, or the real nature. And here is where you see the real difficulty. The Upanishad is now trying to go to some very subtle aspect, and we need to be very sensitive to understand what Dr. Sanjay Banakal is going to say. Dr. Sanjay, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We just saw the nature of Brahman as the material cause of the universe, with the example of fire and spark, that is Jagat Upadana Karana. This is the indirect or relational definition of Brahman from the standpoint of the effect, that is the world. We have already seen, Dr. Divakar said that it is Tatastha Lakshanam. Scriptures give many examples in addition to this, namely clay and pot, gold and ornaments, water and wave, etc. We should keep in mind that any example will have its limitations and can create misunderstandings if extrapolated beyond its limits. So in all these examples, the material cause happens to be a matter like clay, fire, water, and gold, etc., which is very easy to comprehend. But Upanishad doesn't want us to interpret Brahman as matter. And hence it comes out with a clarification in the subsequent mantra, which gives us a direct definition of Brahman. It is a very subtle matter, subtle idea. So we need a lot of preparation to interpret these mantras. So in the second mantra, it says, it is known as a Swarupa Lakshanam, which is description of Brahman from its own standpoint, where Brahman is revealed as the consciousness principle and not matter. That is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. We have already seen one direct definition of Brahman in an earlier chapter in the mantra number 6. So let's look at the verse. Let's look at the second verse. Divyo hyamutas purushaha sabhahyabhyantaro hyajaha aprano hyamanaha shubhro hyaksharat paratasparaha. Here the Upanishad says Brahman is of the nature of consciousness, divyam. It is Swayam Prakasha Chaitanya Swarupa. That is, everything else in the creation is known because of the consciousness principle. Here, one can compare consciousness to the sun. Sun is a self-effulgent, produces light by itself. When compared to moon, which borrows the light from the sun. So, similar to the sun, consciousness is self-evident to all of us. And then the next feature the Upanishad says is it is formless. It has no rupa. It is amurta or nirakaraha. Consciousness being infinite cannot have any form. It says it is purushaha, all pervading, that is unlocated. Now, Brahman doesn't have any location. All the creation comes under the space and time comes along with the creation. But Brahman is beyond that. So it is all-pervading Purusha. And Brahman is not located in any particular place like Kailasa, Vaikuntha, etc. Consciousness is present everywhere. Consciousness is the very essence of the entire creation. So the next feature is Sabahyaha. It's the very essence of the outer world of us. Abhyantaraha. It's also the essence of the inner world, the mind, etc. Sabhahyabhyantara. It is birthless, ajaha. It has no beginning and it has no end. Consciousness is the causeless cause of everything. Then one may think that it might be a panchaprana. It is not the subtle body. So it says it's a apranaha. It is not the mind even. Amanaha. So Shankaracharya says in his Atma Shatakam, Manobuddhi ahankara chittani naham. And it is shubhraha, ever pure, and it can never be tainted. If you say sunlight falling on a dirty pond doesn't become dirty. Impurities like hatred, jealousy, ragadvesha, etc. belong only to the mind, not to the Brahman. The next word is Aksharaha, which means in this context, Maya or Prakriti or Shakti or Avyaktaha, which is the unmanifest potential names and forms. So we should keep in mind that in the previous verse, we had the same Akshara, which meant a totally different meaning. That is Brahman from Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. But in this verse, it has a different contextual meaning. Here it means Maya. All forms are existent in the lump of clay in an unmanifest or potential form. The potter gives just a shape to the clay without adding any new substance. Hence, pot is non-substantial, mithya, and clay alone is substantial, satyam. With a particular form, it gets a particular name, namaha. With the name and form, it becomes functional, that is karyam. Similarly, the world being an effect of Brahman existed in Brahman in potential form before the creation, and it manifests as the world during creation. Hence, the whole world is manifestation of non-substantial name, form, and function, nama, rupa, karma, called creation. So the word Akshara Parataha Paraha means Brahman is superior to the potential names and forms called Maya, which is the cause of all the manifest names and forms. Thank you, Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay. That was a clear explanation of a difficult verse. Difficult because it is talking about something non-material. It is talking about our true nature. These are the verses that we need to be able to understand, as we are not talking about some object. It is talking about our own biography is there in this verse. Very often quoted, and therefore we need to know this verse in its full significance. As pointed out by Dr. Sanjay, the word Akshara here means Maya. In the first section, in the first chapter, the word Akshara came in as a definition of Brahman. So sometimes the Upanishads use these words, but contextually you will have to see what it means. We will see in the 15th chapter again, we have Kshara Purusha, Akshara Purusha, and Uttama Purusha. There the Uttama Purusha is Brahman, Kshara Purusha is the world around us, and Akshara Purusha is Maya. We now go into a little poetic aspect now. The Upanishad is now trying to explain the little more details how Brahman becomes the universe. Rama Gopala Krishna will explain to us.
Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Mundaka Upanishad Mantra 2.1.3. Etasmad jayate prano manas sarvendriyani cha kham vayur jyotirapah prithvi vishvasya dharini. The meaning: from Brahman are born prana, manaha, all senses, space, air, fire, water, and the earth, which supports all. In the next slide, we'll see the introduction to this mantra. Having revealed Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman in the first two mantras, from the third mantra onwards, the Upanishad talks about the Srushti or evolution or even manifestation of this universe. Srushti reveals the cause-effect relationship between Brahman and the world. The Nirguna Brahman, conditioned by Maya, becomes Karana Brahman, and that Karana Brahma alone evolves into Karya Prapancha. So Karana Brahman or Hiranyagarbha is the seed of this universe. The whole creation of the universe, consisting of non-substantial Nama and Rupa, exists in Brahman in an unmanifest potential form. Shastras describe Krama Srushtihi or orderly creation in 4 stages. The creation of the 5 subtle elements, Sukshma Bhutani, subtle elementals, Sukshma Bhautika Srushtihi, 5 gross elements, Sthula Bhutani, and gross element, Sthula Bhautika Srushtihi. The elementals are born out of the combination of 5 elements in different proportions. For example, the elementals of air, walk, are born out of subtle element called space with Shabda Guna. Without bothering about this order, the mantra first talks about Sukshma Bhautika Srushtihi, the creation of subtle elementals, later Sukshma Bhuta Srushtihi, the 5 subtle elements. So just to maintain the order, we will focus on the creation of subtle elements described in the second line. You can see this in the next slide. Kham, Vayuhu, Jyotihi, Apaha, Prithvi. Kham is space, Vayuhu is air, Jyotihi fire, Apaha water, and Prithvi the earth. Each of these elements born from Brahman have their own one unique attribute. Besides this, each element takes the attributes of the previous elements as well. That is Purva Purva Guna Sahitaha. Kham, Akasha with just one attribute, Shabda Guna. Vayu with Shabda and Sparsha. Agni with Shabda, Sparsha and Rupa. Jalam with Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa. Finally, Prithvi with Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa and Gandha. As even the creation becomes grosser and grosser, it is experienced through more number of sense organs. In the next slide, it shows Upanishad highlighting the glory of the earth as Prithvi Vishvasya Dharini. It is one which supports everything, including living and non-living things, by providing food directly or indirectly and also shelter. In the next slide, we see how Sukshma Bhautika Prapancha is created from the Sukshma Bhutani. It is enumerated in the first line as Pranaha and Manaha. The 5 subtle elements arranged in different patterns produce pranas and minds. Prana is the vital energy formed with the combination of samasti rajogunas of subtle elements. They are 5 in number, namely prana, apana, vyana, udana, and samana. Samashti mind or manaha is formed with a combination of samashti sattva gunas of subtle elements. Samashti means combined or total. Manaha refers to the 4 types of mental faculties. Manaha, the emotional faculty, buddhihi, the rational faculty, ahankaraha, the owning of faculty, and chittaha, the memory faculty. Thus, pancha pranaha and 4 antahkaranani are created. Not only that, in the next slide, we watch sarvendriyāni-ca. That is, all the 10 sense organs, including pancha gnanendriyāni, or 5 sense organs for 5-fold knowledge, and pancha karmendriyāni, or 5 organs of action for 5-fold activities. Thus, the elements along with their attributes and the elementals are born from Brahman only. All these are created at the macrocosm level. Moving on to the next slide. After the manifestation of the microcosm Hiranyagarbha, after the manifestation of the macrocosm Hiranyagarbha, the microcosm Taijasa will manifest. Pujya Swami Paramarthanandaji gives a beautiful analogy for this. When the government wants to supply water, first they have a samashti water tank or a lake. From that, they supply to the individual houses through pipeline. Here, the samashti tank is like Hiranyagarbha and individual houses are like Taijasaha or Sukshma Shariram. Hiranyagarbha is also known as Prathamajaha, meaning the firstborn. Etasmad Jayate. All these are born out of Brahman. As you see in the succeeding slide, the entire Sukshma Srushti is reflected out of Brahman, the Mula Karanam. Thus, we see Sukshma Srushti as Karyam was there in the Brahman in an unmanifest name and form. It shows that the product is not separate from its cause. And from Hiranyagarbha, Virat Purusha, the gross universe is born, which is explained in the next mantra. Hari Om. Thank you. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Thank you very much, Ramaji, for a detailed explanation of this particular verse with wonderful illustrations, so painstakingly done. This is how the scriptures present the whole creation process. And if we have to understand, there are some fundamental texts like Tattva Bodha, which we have studied, and we would like to revise these topics again and again, because unless our fundamentals are very clear, understanding these verses of the Upanishads become difficult. Therefore, we plan to have a series of classes titled Disha, where we will do a recap, and part of the curriculum of recap will be these fundamental topics which on Tattva Bodha, all these slides that you have said, because unless we revise these again and again, we tend to forget these fundamentals, and based on these fundamentals, the superstructure of Vedanta can be developed. The next verse will be explained by Vidya Prabhu. Over to you, Vidya.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Agni Murdha Chakshushi Chandra Suryo Disha Shrotre Vag Vivritascha Veda Vayu Prano Hridayam Vishwamasya Padbhyam Prithvi Hesha Sarva Bhutantaratma. This is the most beautiful mantra, which in its expansion is the 11th chapter of Gita. We have studied the Vishwarupa Ishvara that is available for all the people all the time, provided there is an attitudinal shift in our perception of the world. Reverential appreciation of the world is called Vishwarupa Darshanam. Panchastula Bhutani, from the subtle universe, the gross universe has evolved. The subtle elements go through a process of grossification that becomes a raw material for the creation of the universe, which is also called Brahmandam, the body of the God, called Vishwarupa Ishvara. We have already seen how the entire Sukshma Shariram is born out of the Sattva-guna and Rajaguna of the 5 subtle elements. Now the scriptures point out that the tamas component of the 5 elements alone get grossified to become the 5 gross elements. Once we come to 5 grossified elements, Each element has got a mixture of all the 5, and the naming is done based on the predominance of the elements. Like gross space has got all the given elements in the following portion. Example, 50% is space part. The other 4 elements will be only in 1/8 portion, that is 12.5%. Same proportion holds good for all other 4 elements too. Once the 5 gross elements are born, out of that, the entire cosmos, including all our physical bodies, are created. This is called Sthula Srishti or Sthula Abhivyakti. Thus, Maya is the causal universe, and out of that comes subtle universe called Sukshma Abhivyakti, and out of Sukshma Abhivyakti comes the gross universe, which is called Sthula Abhivyakti. Thus, the entire creation manifests itself as gross universe. Now, coming to the verse, Agni Murdha. Agni Murdha is the technical word used in Veda for the upper world or the Swarga Loka, where Surya Bhagavan resides. This becomes the head of Virat Ishvara. Chakshushi Chandra Suryo, meaning Chandra and Surya are the eyes of the Lord. This is the reason why in our tradition, Surya and Chandra are worshipped. Disha Shrotre, the 10 directions are the ears of the Lord. This means that no secret can be kept away from the world. 4 more directions, 4 secondary directions, up and down. Totally, it becomes 10. Vak Vivratascha Vedaha. Vivrata means well-known. The well-known, all-pervading Veda is the speech of the Lord of Vak, of Brahman. We have to remember here that Vedic words are not human words. They are Apaurusheya Pramanam. Vayuhu Prano. The air is the prana or the breathing of the Lord, the sacred prana of Vishwarupa Ishvara. Hridayam Vishwam. Hridayam, the heart, is the very universe. The entire universe is contained in the heart of the Lord. Padbhyam Prithvi. This can be interpreted in 2 ways. First type, Panchami Vibhakti Padbhyam Jata, meaning Prithvi has come out from the feet of the Lord. Second meaning, Padbhyam in Prathama Vibhakti, Padav Prithvi. The feet of the Lord are the very earth itself. Dhyana Shloka of Vishnu Sahasranama goes like this. Bhuhu Padav Yasya Nabhir Vyeda Sura Nilas Chandra Surya Chanetre Karna Vasha Shiro Daurmukhamapi Dahano Yasya Vasteyam Abdihi. I bow to that Lord Vishnu, who is the very body of the 3 universe, whose legs form the earth, sun and moon forming the eyes, the ears forming the directions, the head forming the entire space. In the earlier verse, we have seen the Samashti, the total, as Hiranyagarbha, and Vyashti, the individual, as Taijasa. Here, the last word of the second line, Sarva Bhutantaratma, where Antaratma means essence, as Swami Paramarthanandaji says, Eka, Sara, Nitya, Satyam, Antaryami Ishvara, which is the name for Virat, Isha, Sarva Bhutantaratma. He is the indweller, the soul, the source, the essence of everything. The whole universe is rooted in the Lord. Our whole culture, being a Vedic culture, the day should start before the sunrise, as we should be there to welcome Surya Narayana. We are supposed to meditate on Ishvara at this tranquil period at dawn. This way of life is specified in the scriptures to preserve the Vedic culture of taking this whole universe as a manifestation of the Lord. Thus, here we see the macro aspect of the universe, which is being dealt with in this verse. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Vidya, for a very nice explanation of this verse, and also the correlation of this verse with what we have studied in the Vishwarupa Ishvara Darshana. This is a very key word, sarvabhutantaratma. That means when I see the world outside me, am I be able to see the essence in the universe? What is that? Eka, Sara, Nitya, Satya. We have just completed the 4th verse. And from the 4th verse, I'm going to jump to the 10th verse. Why am I doing that? Because we are not going to skip even a single verse. So in the next class, we will have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And this verse will be explained in the next class. But this class is a preparation for the next class. Why this verse is very difficult to understand, and you will understand my difficulty in trying to explain this verse. And when I selected this verse to explain, I ran into difficulty because, and that is why, if you would see the introduction in the various chapters of the Vishwarupa Ishvara, I spent a lot of trying to explain what is this Brahman as Sat, or which is this existence. Unless we go back into those introductions, this particular verse, which is trying to find out the essence in the creation, trying to find out what is that Ekasara Nitya Satya. This verse, I will give a very brief explanation, but I'm using this opportunity to explain what is called Adhyaropa Apavada. And if you know Adhyaropa Apavada, from this creation, can I go back to the cause, that is creator or Brahman, looking for what is that Ekasara Nitya Satya in the world that I see. This world verse goes like this: Purusha evedam vishvam karma tapo brahma paramritam etad veda nihitam guhayam so vidya grantim vikiratihi somya. Essentially, it is saying Purusha eva idam vishvam. This world is none other than Vishwarupa Ishvara. Purusha alone has become this world. And what is this world? This world is a product of all our karma and upasana. This world is paramritam. It is the highest, but you have to be able to discover it in the cave of your heart. And if you're able to discover it in the cave of your heart, etad yo veda nihitam guhaya, so avidya grantim vikirati. All the ignorance gets destroyed. Vikirati means destroyed. Avidya gets destroyed. Spend enough time in the next 1 month till we come to, when we finish the 12th chapter, we'll be coming to this verse, so that we will know the essence of the 10th verse of the first section of the second khanda of the Mundaka Upanishad. What is the Tathparyam? What is the main corollary? Essentially, it is to be able to see Brahman in the world, which is a higher way of looking at the world. Instead of looking at Ishvara, we tend to see it as a person, but let us see the essence, Ekasara Nitya Satya, or Sat Chit Ananda in the world. Chandogya Upanishad uses this term, Vacharambanam Vikaro Namadeva, Namadehiyam. That means this world is none other than just, this world is reduced to a word. It is only a name and a form. This world is not as real as you think. It is mithya. The Satya is Brahman. The Satya is Sat. We have to discover that Sat. And that Sat is understood again by another Chandogya Upanishad verse, which says, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. That means, what is the essence of everything that I'm seeing? And the essence is what is called existence or Sat. Now we need to be able to discover the Sat in the world outside. Now, the usual example is given as gold and ornaments. Swami Anubhavananda was shared this example. Somebody offered him a choice of 2 statues, one statue of Rama, the other statue of Ravana, both of them made in gold. And they asked him, Swamiji, do you want the Ravana statue or the Rama statue? His witty answer is, give me whichever one is heavier. He was told that one is 100 grams heavier, and by calculation, 100 grams means 5 lakhs more. He said, you know, the Nama and Rupa does not matter. What I want is the essence. The essence is gold. Can we able to see in this world, therefore, this whole world is pervaded by the Purusha. The Purusha pervades this world. And what is this world? This world is the product of my karma. We cannot blame anything for this terrible world, because this world is a product of my past samashti karma. Remember, in the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks, Kim tad Brahma, Kim karma? And Krishna answers, this whole world that you experience is none other than karma. There he's talking about the samashti. That means the collective karma of all the people around me is responsible for this world, and therefore don't blame the world if it is not good. It is part of our karma. It is part of our upasana. In this world, we need to discover what is this paramritam, that ultimate essence, eternal, which Swamiji has so nicely said is the essence. Ekasara nitya satya. That means in the changing world, let me be able to discover Brahman, just like in a golden ornament or in a golden statue. Can I discover what is the essence? Can I discover the world? And therefore, in this world around, what is that which common everywhere? What is Eka? What is Sarvagata? What is Nitya? And what is Satya? You will see anything that you will see, the common thing is there is a man, there is a woman, there is a table, there is a chair. Isness is the common factor. That isness, that existence in everything is something that I have to train my mind to understand. And that is the understanding of Isha Vasyam Idam Sarva. And once we have this perspective, this world is not just a material world. It is an existent world. It is Bhagwan manifesting himself as existence. This intellectual change is called a cognitive change. Once I have this cognitive change, I develop a certain reverence to the world. That reverence manifests a shift from samsara to moksha simply by understanding Vishwa Rupa Ishvara Darshana now from an Upanishadic perspective. The Upanishad teaches us by a technique called Adhyaropa Apavada. In Adhyaropa, you introduce something in order to teach us very subtle techniques. What the Upanishad does is to introduce something. To introduce something, you need a scaffold. To put a roof, you will need a scaffolding. But once the roof is established, you do apavada, you remove. What is our objective? We see a world around us and we think that the world is real. It is extremely difficult to believe that the world is not as real. The world is of a lower order of reality. The world is mithya. I, the Satya, give existence to the world. And this is very difficult to understand. We have to go back a century ago when people thought that the sun sets or the sun rises, because that is what the experience of everybody. Imagine somebody comes and tells you the sun does not set or the sun does not rise. It is the movement of the earth which I cannot perceive. The truth is, because of the movement of the earth, you get a false idea of sun setting and sun rising. The sun never sets or the sun never rises. So difficult to believe. That is what we need to understand in this verse, that the Upanishads are trying to teach us this Jagat is mithya. This Brahman is the only Satyam. There is that Brahman. That Brahman is located in me as consciousness. That consciousness or that conscious existence in me is the reality. The world around me certainly is not as real as you say. And the essence in me, that's conscious principle in me or the conscious existence in me, is the same as that of Paramatma. Very difficult to believe, but this is the truth. Now, if you can think of those days when people were told that the world does not, the world is not stationary, it is rotating, the sun does not set or sun does not rise, it is an appearance. Now, can you imagine this truth has been given to you? Why is this given so much of an importance? Normally, what do we give a lot of importance to? We give a lot of importance to all the mithya products in the world. We give an importance to my body, my mind, my profession, my family, my possessions, which can be put in two words, ahankara and mamakara. Swami Anubhavananda ji says one thing, whatever I give a lot of importance to is the cause of all problems. So Vedanta has method of solving all our problems is don't give so much importance to the growing, graying, going world. That means including my body and all the world around me is going, graying and going. Why do you invest so much? See, in the material world, whenever we have to invest our hard-earned money, we will look at where can I invest or where can I park my money. And therefore, you have people to tell us that these are the companies where your investment is going to give suitable returns. They are not where your money might disappear. So therefore, we are very choosy when it comes to investing something important in the world. The Upanishad says, can you therefore invest your whole life in something that is going to be permanent? And what is impermanent? The Manisha Panchakam gives a very frightening verse. Sashvan nashvarameva vishwamakilam nischitya vacha guru. Listen to the words of the Guru. This whole world, nashvaram eva, the entire world, akilam, can just perish in front of your eyes. It is filmy stuff. It is dreamy stuff. It is not something that we need to invest. And what do? All our training is to invest on this world. Nischitya vacha, nityam brahma nirantaram vimrushata. Can you therefore try to discover on something else? I'm trying to explain to you what is this abhyaropa apavada. Now, this whole world is said to be a projection. A projection on what? A projection on Brahman. Why? Because I have avidya. What is avidya? Avidya does not mean I have ignorance. Avidya means I have partial knowledge, I have partial ignorance. Now, we have that very classical rope snake example, and I will give you a real experience what we had. Some time ago, a group of us were on a yatra, and part of our yatra, we were camping by the river in a forest lodge. And the caretaker of the place said, we are in a forest where there are a lot of creepies and crawlies. So you need to be careful about your footwear, about everything that you have, because we are in the territory, we are in a forest, and therefore we need to respect the environment that we are in and protect yourself. Now, these thoughts are there in your back of the mind, and we are staying in a room, in a dormitory, and there are many beds there. Some of them are occupied, some of them are not occupied. And when I woke up sometime in the middle of the night, it was not entirely dark. There was some light on, and I looked at something on the cot next to me, and I saw something black. And you know how immediately you wonder, what is that sitting on that bed? When I switched on the lamp of my mobile, I realized that somebody had thrown his belt on, but my very fertile mind can project a snake on something. Similarly, it is said this whole world, which is a frightening world, is a projection by my fertile mind, and that is why we unnecessarily suffer. Through Adhyaropa, the teacher tries to tell you, can you find what is the essence in the world? The teacher gives you the normal example of, do you see a pot? All right. Now, in that pot, are you able to discover the essence? Now, this goes in 4 steps. The first, the teacher will present the pot to you as an effect. That means it is a product. And once it is a product, you would like to know, from where did this product come? I will say this product has come from clay. So the second step is, you have moved from the effect, the pot, you have come to the clay. Now the teacher will tell you, whatever you're holding, although you call it a pot, is it apart from the clay? It is none other than the clay. There is no weight apart from, pot itself has no weight. There is nothing substantial. Remember, eka sara, the sara is none other than clay. If pot is not apart from clay, therefore, if it is no longer an effect, if it is no longer an effect, then there has been no cause. That means it has been clay, it is clay, and it will always be clay. If you understand this pot clay example, the same thing is true about any products made out of wood or gold, or example of the water, wave, and so on. So too we use this world, this whole world is none other than Brahman in essence. Now, although we are seeing it as the world, although we are seeing a pot, we need to train ourselves to be able to discover initially Vishwarupa Ishvara, and then the Upanishad says something frightening: there is no such thing as creation. This is called the apavada. There is no creation other than Brahman, which is pure consciousness manifesting as this universe. We will study again that when we come to the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. What we are doing now in the Upanishads is trying to move from the triangular format of Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara or to the binary format. In the binary format, the only reality is Atma. Anything else that I see is Anatma. Anatma is of a lower order of reality. We understand this, the world that I saw in my dream. Once I wake up into this Vyavahara world, I dismiss that world of my dream as pratibhasika, as inconsequential. It cannot affect me. It is of a lower order. Through the study of this Upanishad, through sequential understanding, to be able to discover Ekasara Nitya Satya, I have to understand that I am of a higher order of reality, and that is what is called the Paramarthika. And when I come into the Paramarthika, the world becomes Mithya. The teachers explain Adhyaropa Apavada through this beautiful example where a king had 17 elephants. And he said he left his will saying, my oldest son should get half, the second son should get 1/3, and the third son should get 1/9. Now, how do we divide this? So through the Adhyaropa Apavada, the minister comes in and says, I will add my elephant to it. Now it becomes 18. So the oldest fellow now gets 9. The second fellow gets 6. The third fellow gets 2. You add all together, it comes to 17. The minister is now able to take his elephant away, and that is called the Apavada. Through Adhyaropa, you solve the problem. Through Apavada, you remove that. So this is how we are going to understand this Upanishad. And this understanding is so subtle, it can come to us only by a Dakshinamurti. And our Swamiji is none other than a manifest Dakshinamurti. To Sri Dakshinamurti, who is none other than my Guru, I offer my prostrations, my namaskara to be able to explain this. Friends, we come to the next class. In the next class, we come to the second session of Disha, discovery of inner strength and happiness through the Bhagavad Gita, which will be including certain Tattva Bodha topics like Purusharthas, which will be in our next class. We will have the chanting of Matru Panchakam by Dr. Diksha. Over to you, Dr. Diksha.
Harihi Om. Astam tavadiya prasuti samaye durvara shola vyatha nairucham tanu shoshanam malamayi shayya cha samvatsari ekasvapina garbha bhara bharana klesha yasya kshama dhatum nishkriti munnatopi tanaye tasyai jananyai namaha gurukulam upasritya swapna kale tu drushtva yat samuchita vesham praruto mam tvamuchai gurukula madhas sarvam prarudatte samaksham sapadi charanam yoste maturastu pranamaha न दत्तं मातास्ते मरणसमये तोयमपि वा स्वधावानो दत्तं मरणदिवसे श्राद्धविधिना न जप्तो मातास्ते मरणसमये तारकामनु अकाले सम्प्राप्ति मयि कुरु दयां मतरतुल्यम् मुक्तामणित्वं नयनं ममेति राजेति जीवेति चिरं स्तुतत्वम् इत्युक्त्वा त्यातव वाचि माता ददाम्यहं तण्डुलमेव शुष्कम् अम्बेति तातेति शिवेति तस्मिन् प्रसूतिकाले यदवोचौच्छैः कृष्णेति गोविन्द हरे मुकुन्देति अहो जनन्यैरचितो अञ्जलिः हरिः ओम्.
Thank you, Diksha, for the chanting of Matru Panchakam. Salutations to you, sir, and our sincere gratitude to all the speakers of Team Param Vedanta. Brahman alone is the only reality. It is the essence. Remember, ESNS, Eka, Sara, Nitya, Satya, and dwell on it. For us, Sir also has sowed the seed of the concept of Adhyaraupa Alpavada. We will get to know it better and better as we move along. It helps us to move from the triangular format to the binary format. Our next session is on Monday, is on Disha, Discovery of Inner Strength and Happiness, the session 2. We will be covering chapter 2, verses 1 to 10, an overview of those verses. We will also cover Purusharthas, the 4 goals of life, which is a subtopic of Tattva Bodha. As related earlier, these Monday sessions will help reinforce the teachings with more focus on the essence of the verses and clearing concepts and terminologies used in Vedanta. Our next, on next Friday, the following Friday, we will start chapter 12 of the Bhagavad Gita. So we meet on Monday, 28th of March at 6:45 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Thank you, listeners. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. Dhanyavad.